Protesters are on the streets of Bangkok again, calling for the Prime Minister to go. And as the crisis in Thailand goes on, there are growing fears the army could intervene. Thailand and the continuing turmoil. This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to Inside Story. I'm Stephen Cole. The protesters in yellow shirts want her out, but Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra has invited their leaders for talks. She says she wants to talk about postponing the election set for February the 2nd. The invitation comes as demonstrators try to shut down the capital Bangkok while calling for the government to go. They've barricaded major intersections and plan to march to the homes of ministers. Well, the protests have been gathering momentum ever since November, but they are only the latest in an 8-year conflict that pits Bangkok's middle class and royalist establishment against the mostly poorer rural Thais. Allied with the king and his close circle of elites are the Thai upper middle class, or the yellow shirts. Mostly professionals, they are the ones currently on the streets trying to overthrow the current government. And then there are the red shirts. Together with rural farm workers and the country's poor, they support Yingluck and her brother, the former Premier, Thaksin Shinawatra. Well, to talk more about this continuing political crisis in Thailand, I'm joined by our guests. From Singapore, Panitan Wattanayagorn, a professor of political science at Chulalongkorn University. From Bangkok, Kasit Piromya, the former Foreign Minister of Thailand. Kasit is now an opposition member with the Democrat Party. But let's open from Singapore and go to Panitan. Panitan, more protests, the latest in a series of demonstrations, and there are currently attempts to close down the capital, Bangkok. There are calls for the Premier to step down. How long do you think before the army loses patience and intervenes?
Well, I think the military is already mobilizing its forces into the capital since last weekend. So you have one factor already, that is the forces ready to operate. I think today you see a few hundreds of them being assisted, the police throughout the different offices. That's one factor that is ready. Second, of course, if there is a violence breaks out between the protesters or among the protesters against the police, the military may intervene. Of course, lastly, you need a political view of the leadership in the military to step into politics. That's not yet to happen. The military is quite clear that they don't want to get involved directly. So I would say halfway, the military is now in the process, but not yet fully in the political conflict.
Let's go to Bangkok and Kasit Piromya. Kasit, there have been, as you well know, so many protests over such a long time. Have they achieved anything yet, and could they yet trigger a military coup?
I think the achievement is not the people, but I think for the Thai society as a whole, in terms of the increasing political awareness and participation in the political affairs of the country. So I think that is a positive achievement, and that political awareness and participation permeates every strata of the Thai society and in every region. So it is no longer a classic interpretation of the conflict in Thailand as the rich versus the poor, or the urban versus the rural, or the elite versus the masses. It is run across every strata of the society. And the question is, I think the people now, for the past few months or maybe 1 or 2 years, wanted to have good governance and rules of law and ethical standards among the politicians and political parties. So I think the achievement is for the society as a whole. But in terms of against the Yingluck government, I think the Yingluck government is becoming more and more like a lame duck government, and there is no trust and faith in the conduct of the Yingluck government. So the people have become more vocal more daring and more demanding for political changes or drastic changes in the political regime of Thailand. In that sense, I think the society has made tremendous progress.
Panitan, Kasit's talking about people becoming more vocal. I wonder, are they becoming more violent? A shopping mall, as you know, was once set on fire. People have died. We've seen up to 200,000 on the streets. How much more violence can the country or the military tolerate?
Well, not much more. I think this time is quite different compared to a few years ago. It seems to many of us that protesters, as well as police and military, try to refrain from violence. I think that is one progress that they are making up until now. But of course, sadly, a few people have lost their life, a few hundred injured. But compared to many years ago, I think this is perhaps acceptable to many people. But of course, you need to be careful when you have a lot more people on the streets. I think it is very clear from the military point of view that they want to control people who are very violent from all sides. Especially, they think that people who are trained using weapons of war, like in the past few years, have to be refrained from this conflict. If they are successful in controlling this kind of violence, I think you could have a more peaceful demonstration in the Thai political conflict, and that could be a new level, of exercising freedom of protest from the people in Thailand.
Well, Thailand has had more military coups than any other country. The last one overthrew Thaksin Shinawatra in 2006. Since 1932, Thailand has experienced 11 successful coups and 7 attempted coups. That's 18 in 81 years. So it's no real surprise that politics in Thailand is polarised and has been for some time. And the combination of autocracy, democracy and monarchy has made it more susceptible to coups. Scott Heidler has more on the military position in Thailand and the role it plays, or could play, in the country's future.
The political front lines in Thailand have been drawn. With neither side even hinting at a compromise, there's growing concern that the army could again roll tanks onto the streets of Bangkok, staging a coup to restore order and break political deadlock. But the military insists that it's neutral.
We need to be careful about our comments. What we say can ignite and inspire, even create a situation that will force the army to step in.
At the beginning of their protests, the anti-government movement presented a letter to the army asking them to join their side. Protesters flooded this lawn in front of Army headquarters. They only stayed for a few hours, and there was barely any soldiers to be seen. Now, that's something that's been consistent over these last several weeks of these protests. The Army has been, for the most part, out of sight, but not out of mind. Worries over another coup have fed rumors of secret meetings and high-level plots. And then last month, this from the Army chief.
The door is neither open nor closed. Anything can happen. If it's going to happen, it will be determined by the situation.
We met a retired general who was the Army spokesman during the coup in 1992.
In the past, coups were used as a solution to end tension in the country. The current atmosphere is tense, but a coup is not the answer. The army has learned their lesson.
Previous coups have left Thailand in worse shape than before the military stepped in. And some feel internal divisions are preventing a coup.
Within the military, put it bluntly, divided into two fractions. One supported by the former Prime Minister, and I believe he's still pumping a lot of money into it.
A poll this month showed that most Thais want the military to stay out of politics, something the generals say they agree on. But if the situation heats up on the political front lines, it could force them to make an unpopular decision. Scott Heidler for Inside Story in Bangkok.
Kasit, Piromya, you heard Scott Heidel's report. Has the army learnt its lesson? Because I was reading earlier from the general you saw in his report, Prav Chandrocha, he's refused to rule out the possibility of intervention. This is a direct quote. He's saying, "I am concerned about security. Violence is increasing." What would it take for the army to intervene?
I think in the past, throughout the contemporary Thai modern history, the army intervened in politics for three reasons, I think. One, because they wanted to have the power to run the country, which did occur especially during the height of the Cold War. Second, they intervened because the politicians have failed in their duties, becoming very corrupted. And third, when there are violence on the streets, then they intervene, as was the case, I think, in the year 2006, when the yellow and the red shirts might have it out on the street and would be a lot of bloodshed. So in that sense, the military intervenes. So those are the three situations that induce the military intervention in politics. But for the current problem in Thailand, the conflict at the moment, I think the protesters, unlike the protesters 2 years, 3 years ago, are not using violence. They have gone the Kanti way of India, the ahimsa, non-violent, and so far it has proven to be correct that no violence. So that would not provide the excuses for the army to intervene unless and until the government use violence or the red shirts use violence or maybe third party use violence, then that might lead to bloodshed. That would, I think, necessitate the military intervention. But so far, so good. I think overall, although there are some conflict here and there, shooting sporadically here and there, but I think overall, 95-97% of the protests this time has been non-violent. So I think the negotiation, I think, is the way out. And I think what is needed is not only for the Prime Minister to call a meeting on the 15th of January. I think the first condition for the Democrat Party and the protester as well on the street is for Yingluck to show the responsibility of failures in governing by resign first. Then we can talk about the postponement of the elections. We can talk about the elements of reform and so on. So I think the problem is in the very personality of Prime Minister Yingluck. She has failed completely as a Prime Minister. That has to go first.
Panitan, is this a clear division between yellow shirts and red shirts? Because Kasit was intimating that it isn't as clear-cut as that. And there are divisions or different views within the yellow shirts, different views within the red shirts. What's your interpretation?
That is correct. There are similarities among many of them in terms of wanting the Thai political system to be better, to be more transparent. According to the recent Asia Foundation poll on the red shirt and on the yellow shirt, and of course on the many other color shirts that we have in Thai politics, they share the same goal. They want a better life, they want a better government, and they also want a better representation. They want to improve the electoral system, and they also want to have a better check and balance. But of course, they are looking at these issues from different points of view, depending on where they stand. This is why once they are able to communicate among each other, they often find that they don't have very many differences. But of course, politicians may pull them away on one side or on the other side. That is a problem in Thailand in the past. But of course, now you have reform issues at hand that need to be accommodated by all sides. If they are able to do that, I think the way out of the crisis will be much more easier. They also want a more neutral body to handle the reform issues. That's another issue that I think the government needs to reconsider quite carefully. For I think the rest of the population, I think identification with color shirt politics is very limited, less than 10%, according to the Asian Foundation survey last time.
Kasit, the opposition, as you know, want what they call people's councils with, in quotes, decent men on those councils who would basically eradicate any possible influence of the Shinawatra family. They won't tolerate anything less than a complete break away from the Shinawatra regime or clan or family, will they?
I think you misuse the word opposition. When you talk about the opposition, which means the Democrat Party, it has a
when
different
I talk about the
position
opposition, I mean anybody
opposition,
opposed
if you mean
to Yingluck Shinawatra.
No, I don't think you can generalize, because we, the Democrat Party, are quite different from the protester led by Kun Suthep. I think we have differences. So we are opposing the way the parliamentary life was being practiced the past 2.5 years. The using of majority authoritarianism in parliament was not acceptable to us. Second, we asked for the showing of the responsibility on the part of the Yingluck government herself. And third, we would like to work with every walks of life, every colors on the political or structural reform of Thailand. But the protester led by Kun Suthep, he doesn't want the election to be held now, but he would like the reform process to start first, and the reform body could be either half elected or nominated or mixture of the two, and so on. That details have to be worked out by Mr. Suthep and the ringleaders of the protester. And I think that position could be totally different from the Democrat Party. So I do disagree the use opposition to be a universal one.
Panitan, Mr. Suthep and his allies don't accept the election as a way out of this impasse, if you like. I suppose that could be because if there was an election, they'd lose. That's why they want an unelected council. They've lost the last 5 elections, haven't they?
Well, of course, they are very concerned about the electoral system that they have, or that they see that there are problems in the electoral system in Thailand, according to their perception. Yes, of course, they think more representation has to be fixed before the new election is held. If you look at the party voting system in general, a popular party voting, it is less of a problem. 3 in 5 people in Thailand voted, the eligible voters voted for the Pheu Thai, the main government party. 2 in 5 eligible voters voted for the Democrat parties. But when you translate that into the constituency politics, well, you have different complications in terms of local political machines, vote buying, and also pattern and client system. This is what the PDRC, Mr. Suthep, want to fix. It's not going to be easy, but many people are sharing his thought that yes, Thailand may need to have 2 systems. One is a popular voting system, and another one is similar to the electoral system, proportional system, which many democratic countries also have. But this debate is going to be very intense because Pheu Thai want very much on the popular voting system. But of course, we also acknowledge that the popular voting system is problematic even in very developed countries. This is the center of the conflict, one of the center of the conflict right now.
Kasit, you wanted to come in on this point, didn't you?
Yes. I think we lost elections the first 5 times. I think it's usually either we lost to the money politics, or we lost to the populist policy measure which we could not promise the people. It's unethical from our point of view. But I think how we lost the election have to be analyzed. On top of what Dr. Panitan has said, that a lot of corruption inside the election has been going on for a long time.
What do you mean by that, Kasit? A lot of corruption? What do you mean by a lot of corruption? Because,
for example,
because they won by big margins, especially the last election.
No, I don't think so. No, the last election, I think the popular vote, they won by about 3 million. It's about 14 and 11 million popular vote. But the previous election, the difference was only 100,000. It's about 12 million and 12 million plus one more 100,000 for
you can't escape the fact you've lost every one of the last 5 elections, though, can you?
Yeah, but it's not only to Thaksin. I think we lost to coalition of other smaller parties that have used money as the mean. And second, to use regional differences, a sort of a hate campaign to say that Democrat Party are Bangkok urbanized elitists and so on. And you sell this idea to the people in the rural. So that you created an artificial class division. And I think that is unethical, that is undemocratic. But we are working on the political reform and election reform. I think Kun Apisit, my leader, has just a few days ago met the election commissions, and he has stated his view on how to reform the elections rules and regulations to prevent money politics, to prevent cheating in politics, and also not to allow populist policy measures promising the moon and the star to the people, and the government could not deliver it. I think this could not happen in any democratic country.
Panitan, most people, Panitan, it's fair to say, people who want to reform electoral systems are normally the losers, not the winners. There's no doubt the Shinawatra family or regime does have enormous support, not least in the north and northeast.
Yes, indeed, but their popularity is now decreasing. According to the Northeast University poll, the Democrat Party in popularity increased about 30% in the urban areas in the north and the northeast, and the overall in the north and the northeast regions, Democrat Party increased the popularity about 15%. But then again, the gap is still quite large between the two biggest parties in Thailand. But then again, Stephen, you have to also look at the other side of the coin. You need to ask, why is it Pheu Thai is so afraid of, or the government is so afraid of reform? If they claim that they are so popular, I think they should not need to be worried too much about the reform. After all, maybe perhaps the reform will give them even more legitimacy. They can get rid of the claim that they're buying votes. That is also an issue to consider by the government. But yes, indeed, I think the real problems is on the ground. When you have the police, when you have the district officers able to cast the influence on the voters who are very poor and who are very, very afraid of the police and very afraid of the district officers, then perhaps those elections are problematic. You need to look into that. But of course, there is no willing to look into that yet at the moment. But perhaps this issue must be negotiated.
Kasit,
yes.
These bitter divisions, are they making Thailand ungovernable? How precarious is democracy at the moment?
I think the deep division is not between the reds and the yellow and the white anymore. I think, as Dr. Panitan has said at the beginning, there are, I think, common grounds for the reform, for the change among the ordinary people, regardless of the colors of their shirts. I think the deep conflict at the moment is between the masses, ordinary people, versus a political regime, a political ideology that is no more acceptable to the society. The Thaksin ideology of politics and the conduct of politics with money, with abuses of power, acting like a mafia above law, is no longer tolerated by the people. So the conflict is not the same as the previous conflicts, of the class differences, of the colors, of ideologies, and so on. But now it's about majoritarianism that had happened in many of the elected governments around the world that have become authoritarian. So this is the problem at the moment. It's about illegitimate, illegal government versus the people that would like to have ethical standard and good governance in politics.
We must leave it there. Thanks to my two guests, Panitan Wattanayagorn and Kasit Piromya. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. If you want to, send us your feedback. Send it by email to insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks again for watching. From me, Stephen Cole. Goodbye.